Those creatures took some of our own last night. If you're looking to help, you can do so by going into those caves nearby and looking for any survivors. Bring them back here, and there might even be some coin in it for you.
Hello, and welcome to Tuna's Tales. This time on Pondering Monsters, we're going to be doing a slight continuation of the previous video, Befriending Black Dragons, as the dragon encounter in that video assumed that there was a group of creatures that were able to capture an adult black dragon. So, just what sort of beasties are going to beset your party? None other than the humble Gnoll. From the last video, there were two questions that we needed to answer while planning out the encounter that I glossed over at the time. These are, how did the party get to the cave with the black dragon, and how did the cave's inhabitants manage to capture such a creature in the first place? For this video, I will be detailing how I would answer those questions, as well as covering everything else you would need to know to send your party through a Gnoll cave that ends with them speaking with a black dragon. Additionally, since I'll be using Gnolls for the main opposition here, I will also be using their stat block's typical alignment of chaotic evil. So, with all that out of the way, let's see what this encounter's about. Your party has just arrived in a village, and as they walk down the main street, they can see that this place is in a terrible state of disrepair. Buildings are smoldering, villagers are working to clean up debris that's laying everywhere, and the people appear to be salvaging anything they can. It's clear that this place was attacked, and recently. If they ask around about what happened here, then you can have a villager reply with what they know and point the party in the direction of the head of the guard or whoever you want to be in charge around here.
Oh, some terrible creatures rolled through town yesterday. Looks like they took whatever wasn't nailed down. I'm not sure what they were, but I'm sure you could get more answers from Mr. Sharptooth. He's set up in that building over there. Do you think you could spare some coin for the unfortunate before you go?
Whoever you decide to put in charge of the town should be helpful but busy. They'll answer as many questions as they can, including what the creatures are. Throughout the interaction, it should be clear to the party that this NPC is overwhelmed right now, and if they continue talking to them, then they will suggest to the party that, should they wish to make some coin, they can help the village out by going and investigating these caves where these creatures are known to reside.
Look, I've got a lot on my plate right now. We lost a lot of good people yesterday, and some of them are still missing. We suspect that some of them were taken in the raid, and, well, if you're interested, you can make some coin by going and checking out those caves for us. If you happen to find any survivors, bring them on back, and we'll make sure you're compensated. If you happen to deal with the Gnoll problem in there too, well, all the better.
If your party takes the hook, then they should be on their way to the caves soon. As for compensation, use whatever you feel will motivate your party the most, but for a group of 4 to 5 characters at around 5th level, 300 gold wouldn't be a bad start. Now we get to ask some questions to help us determine why this happened. If we include the 2 questions from the previous video, these are, how did the party get to the cave with the black dragon? How did the cave's inhabitants manage to capture such a creature? Just where are these caves? How many survivors will the party find? And why did the Gnolls attack the village in the first place? So, let's kick it off with questions 1 and 2. When it comes to answering these 2 questions, the setup here sort of manages to do that on its own. For the how did your party get here question, we want to look at not the literal how, but more the how did they learn about and decide to come here aspect of the question. Using the setup from above, we can say that they were hired by the village to go and investigate these caves. For the how did the Gnolls manage to capture such a creature question, magic is still the answer here. Specifically that the Gnolls have a shaman who has access to a magic orb that can maintain a spell when a spell is cast into it. Combine that with a spell that the shaman knows that can temporarily weaken a dragon, and we can say that the orb is able to weaken a dragon by maintaining the dragon weakening spell. This allowed the Gnolls to bind the dragon with their chains and force it back into their cave system. This orb is called the Orb of Draconic Binding and is detailed in my last video. With the stragglers from last time taken care of, just where are these caves? Ideally, they should be somewhere nearby, but out of the way. No more than 4 hours, and no less than 30 minutes travel in one direction. The main thing we do want to keep in mind while picking a travel time here is how convenient would it have been for the Gnolls to attack this village? The more convenient it is, the more we can let the party explore the question of why didn't the Gnolls attack the village sooner? Counter to this, though, would be that the further away it is, the more you can challenge the party by having random encounters along the way. This can be good if you wish to soften up the party before they get to the main event. If you want the best of both worlds, however, then try splitting the difference and saying it's about 2 hours travel. Once the party gets to the caves, they're going to need to start exploring, with the end goal being to find the kidnapped survivors of the Gnoll attack. The number of survivors that you can have your party find down here shouldn't be too small, but just enough that the party will struggle a little bit while protecting them during an escape attempt. The fewer the number of survivors there are, the less sense that it would make for the village to send a group of adventurers after them, unless one of these survivors was someone important from the town, like the mayor's son. I'll leave that up to you if you want to use that, though. For now, though, let's say there are 10 survivors, 2 for each party member. This should add a reasonable level of difficulty later on, without slowing the party down too much. These survivors are a good mix of men, women, and children, all of varying ages, but you should also consider using whoever you think would motivate your party to help them the most. Additionally, the number of survivors that you pick for this should be known by the party in advance. Mr. Sharptooth, who sent them on this quest, would know about how many people are missing and would have conveyed that to the party. And for our last question, why did the Gnolls attack this village in the first place? There are a lot of deeper answers that we could come up with for this. Things like the Gnolls needed resources that only the village had, sacrifices for some deity, or anything you can think of, really. This is also a great question to use if you want to tie this into a larger arc in your campaign, or you could keep it simple and just use it for a one-shot. For this, though, I'll be going with the Gnolls are feeling overconfident after capturing a dragon and needed resources. After all, they just captured a dragon. That's gotta be a lot harder than attacking a village, right? With our questions answered and an idea of what the encounter will look like, let's start tying it all together. After some time of tracking the Gnoll raiding party through the woods, you all approach the mouth of a cave hidden in the forest. For this encounter, I'll be using this map that I put together, which you can find a link to down in the description. As the party is moving throughout the caves, they should have the potential for stealth, or they could just full-on kick down the door if they wanted to. This is also a great opportunity to include any traps you would like, things like pit traps, giant swinging logs, arrow slits in the walls, etc. The Gnolls, even though they have a shaman, probably wouldn't have access to magical traps, so plan on some simple mechanical ones. As for stealth, any stealth checks made should be made at the DC 12 to 14 range, depending on how well equipped for sneaking your party is. As for combat, there should be several in here. Some that are really easy to avoid, some that are really hard to avoid, and some where an alarm gets set off in the place if things go horribly south. The goal of the party here is to rescue the survivors, not wipe out the Gnolls. If they try to, they might just find that it's more difficult than they anticipated. Either way, after some combat, trap triggering, sneaking through caves, etc., the party should find themselves in a cavern with the prisoners in cages. If you've seen the last video, then this is where they encounter the Black Dragon. I've linked that video in the description and recommend checking it out to see what's in store for the party. However, since I've already covered how that can play out, I'm going to skip past it and move on to the escape attempt. After dealing with the dragon, the party has a clear way out, a group of scared but freed survivors, and the ticking clock of the cave system that seems to be coming down, as well as the Gnolls that know where they are. If your party's not catching the hint that they should be leaving by now, then you can have the villagers here urge them to make an escape while they can as rocks start to fall. The tunnel out of here is a slanted, acid-soaked passage that is quickly becoming unstable. The villagers will start to move through this and eventually make it to the surface. As you all stand there, rocks falling around the cave, Gnolls starting to pour into the room, one of the villagers speaks up.
Thank you for saving us, brave heroes. But we're not out of the woods yet, and this whole place looks like it's coming down. Please, we must get going. Some of us are very weak, and we can't all make it out without you.
Looking around, you see you're quickly becoming outnumbered by Gnolls. A rock falls nearby to one of the older villagers in the room, narrowly missing him as he seems to be struggling to lift one of the children up to the tunnel out of here. This is the perfect situation for a group skill challenge. There are multiple people out there who have already made videos on how to run one of these, but for me, I like to keep it relatively simple. I usually start in initiative order and ask everyone to tell me what skill they're using to escape or help the villagers. I also let my players know that they can't use the same skill twice in a row. The DC that I would use for this situation would be around the DC 12 to 13 range, and if a majority of the party succeeds, then I'd count that round as a success. After 3 successful rounds, everyone gets out. When it comes to the villagers though, let's say they all make it out alive no matter what. You can change this however you feel appropriate for your games, but given that I'm writing this for a more general audience, I didn't want to make it too grim. Consider also that if the party completely fails their skill challenge here, then you can say that their failure is what allowed the villagers to escape in the first place. It's a real the heroes bought the bystanders time to escape by sacrificing themselves situation. If they don't completely whiff it with the skill challenge though, then as soon as the last character makes it out of the cave properly collapses, trapping the Gnolls inside, and allowing the party to return to the village unhindered to collect their reward and receive praise as the ones who rescued the missing villagers. Now, I want to take a quick second here to talk about some of the failure states that can occur while running this adventure, of which there are several. The first and easiest one to deal with is going to be if the party gets taken out by Gnolls before they manage to get to the survivors. If this happens, then simply have the Gnolls capture the party and throw them in with the rest of the prisoners. From here, you can run the Black Dragon encounter as normal once the party wakes up, and depending on how nice you want to be to your players, you can even say that their gear is kept somewhere in this room to be guarded by the dragon. The more dangerous failure states to be aware of here are the actual encounter with the Black Dragon and the tunnel escape. If your party does try to fight the dragon, then I'm of the mindset that if you've properly shown them that it's still strong and more than they can handle, then that's on them. They do have the option of running, as the dragon can't leave this area easily and isn't blocking their exit. If they've tried to fight and it doesn't go well, then allow your party to change their mind, come back, and try to make a deal with the dragon. It does still want out after all, and the party is its best option at the moment. As for the tunnel escape, this one is the easiest one to allow a TPK on. If you want to avoid that though, as that might not be the most interesting way to lose a character, then you can always allow the party to make their way back inside the cavern to try and find another exit. You may notice that on the map there are 2 entrances, and one of them just so happens to be near the dragon's chamber. The party can try to make their way here and escape, or they can try to go back the way they came. Of course, I always encourage you to do whatever is right for you and your table, and if your players are okay with TPK due to rocks falling, then who am I to tell you not to? So, how do we scale this? Increasing the DCs of any traps, stealth checks, or group skill checks at the end is a good start. You can wear the party down more by having random encounters on the journey to the caves. And you can even swap out the Gnoll stat block for the tougher Gnoll Pack Lord from page 163 of the Monster Manual. You can scale up the tunnel escape by increasing the number of successes required to escape. I said started at 3, but 5 is also reasonable. You can also add in a failure check of 2 to 4 failures before the party is unable to escape. Hitting this means they are trapped here with the Gnolls and need to find another way out. Speaking of the final escape, yet another way to make it more difficult is to use the environment. I've described the tunnel made by the Black Dragon here as acid-soaked and unstable. I see no reason why you can't have it deal some acid damage to the party as they fail skill checks. Or if you want to be really mean, then you could say that the villagers are taking small amounts of acid damage as they make their escape. No more than 1 point of damage at a time, though. If you do decide to use that, then I would only recommend it if you know that the party has healing that they can spend on the villagers. To go all this way to rescue some people only to have them get unalived as the party is so close to winning is kind of poor form, and depending on the table that you're running for, might result in some unhappy players. And with that, we have an encounter in a gnoll den complete with traps, stealth, a twist black dragon, and a daring escape. If you want to run this for your group, I've written things up in a more adventure-friendly format and included a link to it and the map from earlier in the description down below. Hopefully you and your group find this interesting, and if you do, please help me out by dropping a like, subscribing and doing that thing with the bell, and if you do run this for your group, why not leave a comment telling me how it went? Thanks for letting me talk at all of you, and until next time,
Keep pondering.